It's not that deep, guy.
Anyways, welcome to the Podwans podcast, where we talk about the finale of The Acolyte. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and thank you,
Luke. Shitting me?
Sure,
you have to have a Prime account to stream on Twitter? What is this shit? Oh, that's garbage.
Streamer have to give us more money.
No, no. Prime account on X. So you have to have a Prime.
You have to be verified on.
That's garbage. That's garbage.
Oh,
we're
not verified on Twitter, so we got to talk to Elon Musk about that.
No.
Yeah,
I
guess the Twitter audience can go.
Well, anyways,
I hate that. I hate that so much. Sorry. Get everybody from Twitter over here, please, because that's where most of our viewership is.
That's true.
Spread the word.
But hello, everyone. It's good to see you guys. I wasn't here last week, but I'm here this week for the finale. I do have to hop on a plane, like in less than 12 hours, so that's great. But yeah, we had the season finale of The Acolyte 2 days ago. It's over. It's done. We did it.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy happened. Nothing important.
Nobody was vindicated at all.
Nothing happened. They got on screen and they said, "You are Mr. Acolyte," and that was the credits.
A guy that is mentioned on this book was not seen in this
James
show.
Lucino, I don't think showed up in the show.
And neither did Palpatine. Yeah.
But yeah, we got two people coming on with us today. We got a lot to talk about with not just the finale episode, but the season as a whole. So I'd say let's bring on our continuing guest for our Acolyte coverage. Let's talk to Nick at ND Wise Guy.
How's it going, everyone?
It's great. What does Luke need to change his name on Twitter to?
So, Luke, can you just let everyone know what is Chimere?
We don't know what Chimere.
What is Chimere?
No, we do.
Yes, we do. It was confirmed today.
Luke, if your guy was on that fucking island with Chimere, what do you think he is?
No, because
it does matter. Because Luke, you're over here milking the living shit out of your prediction that Plague is going to show up, but at the same time, you're going to not acknowledge any of anyone else's theories. What is that?
I believe the agreement was that if Chimere was a Sith, which has been confirmed, Luke, you were going to change your Twitter name.
By who?
By Leslie in the interview today.
You want me to link the Collider interview?
But here's the thing. They could instantly bounce back and be like,
Luke, no.
What's in a name, though? Like, okay, maybe he's a Sith, but he's also hot.
Chimere,
Most Sith aren't hot.
What are you talking about?
That's true. That's true.
But
I mean, Anakin was hot on Mustafar, but that was for different reasons.
There's a lot of people that think that Maul's attractive. There's a lot of people that think Malgus is attractive.
Maul is a pretty attractive.
Raven's
Sith.
pretty attractive. Let's see who else is attractive. We also
my
have,
God, Char, we get it. You know a lot of Sith that are hot.
Xano is pretty hot.
I heard Xanatos was pretty cool.
Darth Talon.
Oh wait, he's not.
Don't even get me started.
Sorry.
Yeah. Darth Talon.
There are some attractive Sith Lords.
Yeah, there's a lot of hot.
There's people that would argue that Vader is more attractive in the suit.
He's physically hot, okay?
But that being said, we do have one other guest. We have Natacia. Hello. Question: is Vader more attractive in the suit or out of the suit?
Oh, in the suit. Are you kidding me?
Okay, there we go.
No question.
The most important.
Can't even believe we're even asking that question. Get out of here.
Some people think Hayden Christensen is like the finest thing on earth.
Listen, Hayden Christensen is so beautiful. He's a beautiful man, but that suit?
I think that's fair. Well, we had a doozy of an episode. We really did. We got a lot of questions answered in episode 8. Some questions were left unanswered. Some new questions arose. There's a lot to talk about and break down, not only with this episode, but the season as a whole. I think all of us have varying feelings about everything. But Natacia, since we just brought you on, I just want to ask you first, where do you stand now at the end of episode 8 with the Acolyte?
I am this show's greatest defender. I am obsessed with it. I was so happy with the show overall. I definitely acknowledge, and I'm sure we'll get into it, that there were challenges that I feel the creators experienced in putting this story together, and I do think that some of those challenges were reflective in the product that we got. So I don't think it was a perfect show, but honestly, I felt it's weird because normally my experience of engaging with content is I usually have like a really positive experience watching a thing, and like the more I think about things, the more I start to like it starts to unravel a little bit in my mind. I'm having almost the opposite experience with this, where when I watched this episode I was just like, well, that didn't quite make sense, or like I don't really know like where we're going with this. And like the more I have unpacked this show over the last couple of days, yeah, I gotta say I really loved it. The Vernestra Stan crew is suffering a little bit.
Can we talk about that on a serious note?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm not super deep in the High Republic. I obviously know who Vernestra is. I kind of know what she's about, but what she did. I've seen both sides of it, and maybe we're talking about something different, but the way that she ended up framing Soul for everything, I like that aspect. I understand why she did it, and I like that they went back to Brendock as that was happening, so that you can hear her apologize to him while he's on the ground when she finds him. Like, I think that was great. That, like, you know, from Chimer's perspective, you see her lean down and whisper something in his ear, and then later on you get the "I am so sorry, my friend," and it's because of what she has to do. I also think the way she described Soul was perfect. He was a kind, caring, and compassionate man who made a terrible mistake. I think so many people like forgot that, and I think her perspective on all of that is so important. I like Vernestra. I understand why she's doing what she's doing, but it's like, it hurts a little bit.
I gotta say, and Natacia, I feel like you're gonna get behind me when I say this.
Oh, okay.
There was a take a couple of weeks ago saying that Vernestra, that people that haven't read the books cannot comment on Vernestra. Right? Yeah, that take did exist. It existed. Mm-hmm. And what I've got to say to that take right now is, wow, character development does exist. You weren't the same that you were 100 years ago, were you?
Yeah, I mean, Vernestra was a teenager, and now you're saying you have to read her to understand her? No. This is a century-old living Jedi Master that has completely changed over the course of time.
Like, my thing is that, are we not allowing them to, like, grow? Like, what? Like, and also, why do we need to be? We preach in the community to not be gatekeepy, but then again, we see gatekeepiness when it comes out to like that. That's why people, and I feel like sometimes High Republic Twitter specifically can be like that, but I also understand why they are like that, because they have been. A lot of the folks in the High Republic Twitter have been marginalized. Their voices haven't been heard in Star Wars before. Like, this is their thing, and I totally respect that. But we are becoming this thing that we sought to destroy, in the sense of we're not allowing other people to be part of that fandom. And it worries me to a bit with Vernestra, because she's not going to be the same of what she was in the books, nor should she be. Time changes things, events change people, and she should be allowed to do that.
And in general, just time just changes people.
Exactly.
Like I was talking about this on an Instagram post, talking about the character of Luke Skywalker. I'm like, with age comes wisdom, and if you expected Luke to be the same person from the original trilogy into the sequel trilogy, if you're the same person 30 years from now, that's a problem that's a problem in itself.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're supposed to change. Like, that's what happens. Like, you experience loss, you change where you live, you change your job, you have a fallout of friendships. Like, that's what happens. Things impact you in a way, whether it be positive or negative, and it can change the courses of these stories. Like, that's what happens. It's not hard.
Yeah, and I think I remember people's kind of comments about Vernestra earlier in the season, and I think like my frustration when it comes to like the High Republic fandom, of which I consider myself to be a very proud member, is really one, if we're just being honest, like there's the accessibility issue just generally with book reading.
Yeah.
Like, right? Yeah. Like that's just like not for everybody. Not everybody has the time to sit and read fucking 50 books or whatever it is. Like catch up on everything that has happened with the High Republic. And people shouldn't have to do that to be able to understand and engage with a character. Like people should not have to do this extra homework to be able to engage with and talk about a character. And yeah, it is really ridiculous to expect Vernestra to be the same person. To be honest, like with me, it really, and I'm sure we'll get into it. I want to hear what other people think too.
Yeah.
But like, my excitement around how they handled the character of Vernestra is it is getting the wheels turning in my mind of like what happened in those 100 years to like shift her this way. It's making me go back and like really like think about character decisions that she's making in the books and like sort of like thinking about like those impacts on what we're seeing now on the screen in this older version of her. And it's really exciting. Anybody who like loves the High Republic books and the High Republic world, this should be so interesting and exciting instead of being like feeling like betrayed because she's not the exact same character you felt like she you had built up in your mind that she was going to be. And also just like it's fun to kind of see characters like evolve. Like it's really fun to watch that. So yeah, a little bit more like, man, I really went into this like show like posting everything like Vernestra's gonna come and save the day, and it's and then at the end of it I'm like, oh, okay, well,
save the day from her point of view.
From a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view, she did save the day for certain people.
From only her
For
point
the
of view.
Senate.
And I think too, like the other interesting part is that the Jedi Order in this show is at a very different space than where they were in the books.
Yep.
So I completely agree with Natacia. The question for me was always what happened to Vernestra, but also what happened within the Order to cause her to have to adapt like this. That's kind of something that I'm really curious about now. Is like what events have happened in that 100 years since whenever it is the High Republic ends, which I hope is never, to have her be this character that she is in this show, and to have those distinct differences from the character that we saw even through the Phase 3 of the books, which is a very different form of who she was in Phase 1 of the books.
So here's a question. What if they miraculously were like, all right, after Phase 3, we're going to do another phase. And
Party.
Party. No. But like, seriously though, but like either it be a video game, which I think if you do like a Jedi Survivor-esque game in the High Republic, I think that would be interesting.
Eclipse is not canceled. It is indefinitely delayed.
Might as well be canceled.
Just please cancel it.
It doesn't get thrown to the other wolves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Natacia and Nick could speak to this. I think that from someone who has read a little bit of the High Republic and has like dipped my toes in is the best way I can put it. Is from from when it was conceived, I think the High Republic's release has been messy. I think the way they've pushed it out could have been better. I wish we would have gotten something like Acolyte sooner. Because like what you said, Natacia, like I think is super true. Like there's an accessibility factor with the High Republic of it's just books. It's books and comics. And like I'm someone like that I enjoy comics to an extent, but they are not my go-to. Like I don't like them. Like there are comics that I have enjoyed and that I can recommend to people outside of Star Wars, but I'm not going to go out of my way to get a new issue every week. And if I go to my local comic book store and they don't have that issue, then I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to wait till the whole thing comes out and then I have to order it or do a subscription with like Marvel Unlimited or
you got to get one of those giant Omnis over there.
Yeah, and there's a huge barrier to entry for the High Republic right now because a lot of people, the way they want to consume media is not by literature. And I think having something visual, whether it was a show or a movie or a mini series or a video game set in the High Republic 2 years ago would have made a huge difference.
See, this is why you have to watch Young Jedi Adventures because we have that show
bro.
I was literally about to say it exists.
Exactly.
That's why
you guys are not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm not retracting my statement. Something can be both true and false at the same time.
But like, here's the other thing. Just to talk about Nubs Nation for a second. What do you think he looks like when he's full grown? Like, bro, that's got to be like what? What if he's like what if his species?
Have you seen
like
Poppy's Playtime?
Oh my god!
Does he just turn into like Cookie Monster or something?
No, I hope he turns into like an absolute full-size bear with a lightsaber.
But it's so
Poppy's
funny,
Playtime is actually set in the High Republic.
But I do agree with you, Chase. I mean, I think like having the books be the initial medium was great from the sense that it allowed for a level of nuance that we aren't seeing being able to happen in certain TV shows, especially with more and more of these shows having shortened seasons and shortened runtimes. But I do think they need to expand beyond the books if they want to continue telling stories in that era.
No, agreed. Especially if they want like mainstream media interest.
Yeah.
The senator that showed up last episode. Oh no,
Raincourt.
Raincourt. Holy shit! I loved him, and for a second I was like, wait, hold on, is this how Palpatine gets the blueprint of being a Sith Lord and also being a senator? Because he's very much like already on the Jedi's tails. Like, y'all are unchecked. We've seen this happen before, and maybe it's because he knows history. Like the High Republic Jedi were very, very loose with their power. It seems like because they weren't coming to the Jedi. They weren't coming to like being informed with the Senate quite yet, as of yet. So they see these situations, but honestly, we can't really say that because we don't know how it ends.
Yeah.
So it's like what knowledge so it's like the opposite. What knowledge they know in the story of the Acolyte is what we're trying to figure out. And I think that's
based on what Kay said in the chat. I'm gonna go with a no on Raincourt being tenebrous.
I agree.
I think I would almost say that I don't think he's involved with the Sith. I think there could be manipulation going on there, like from like the way we saw. We'll get to it. The way we saw our little boy in the shadows is how the Sith operate, and I could see a character like Raincourt being manipulated from the shadows, from behind the scenes, like someone's in his ear, telling him you cannot trust the Jedi, like you just can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, and how much of that conversation do you want to wait toward the end? Because I could talk about
let's get through some of the let's get through the episode as a whole.
So I will say this, like Chimere, and I think Chimere ate this season. As the stranger and as himself. Every single time he was on screen, he demanded the attention.
Yeah.
Like his lines were good. The action that they gave that character was also good. And on the opposite side, Soul was fantastic. Yes, everybody is starting to realize that, well, Soul's okay, but if it weren't for him having that,
I feel like we can get into that in a little bit. I have very strong opinions on Soul and the Jedi as a whole. No intention to rhyme, but let me just to kind of chug along episode 8. Nick and Natacia, were the questions you had going into episode 8, were they properly answered? You can give a percentage of which was properly answered. Were you satisfied with the answers you were or were not given?
I can say that I feel mostly fine with the answers that we were given, if we are getting more show.
I think that's super fair.
Yeah. I think where we landed now feels there are things I'm a little I will say this much. I feel like almost everything I feel okay with where things were. I think most of the essential things got answered for me. Like I had some questions about Vernestra and Chimere's connection, and there were certain things I had questions about that I do feel were answered. My hold up is with Soul, to be honest, and we can get more into that, but I feel like there are too many things that feel like loose ends with that character in particular, and I don't know if the show has any intention of ever going back to that again.
Can you go into that, because now I'm curious, because to me it feels like his character was pretty open-ended, like towards at least for me in episode 8. It's like, oh, we got a lot of his motivations and a lot of a lot of those answers. So I'm curious to see where you're coming from, because hearing that kind of interests me.
Yeah, I think that, like, in a very broad sense, like we got answers, and this is maybe speaking to just sort of the show not giving quite as much spaciousness for understanding character dynamics as much as I would have liked. And I think some of that is I kind of understand, like, Soul's motivation, and again, like, we can get into that later. It sounds like other people have thoughts too, but it felt a little bit like, why didn't he have a Padawan at the point in which he didn't have one? Like, it felt like there was some sort of I was getting the sense that, like, did the Jedi Order not trust that he was, in a space to be able to be a master to a Padawan? I I do kind of have some questions about that 16-year period, like in between, where like the flashback on Brendock and kind of where we landed in like the current history of like, what was the thing that was there an inciting event that had Osha leave the Jedi Order? What was Indara's role in that? To me, it felt kind of shocking that after the events in Brendock, that Indara even was okay with the idea of Soul being this girl's master after everything that happened. Like, how did that even happen? Like, I just feel like there are like little pieces of history there that like I don't feel good about not knowing, and now Soul's gone. So like I'm really hopeful that like if we do get additional seasons, that this isn't the end of some of that context, because I do actually think that that's also an important part of Osha's history that I don't want to just brush over.
I think I think you're right on all of those points. And again, this all falls on, do we get more of the Acolyte moving forward? Because even though the four masters are now gone, Vernestra was still there the whole time. She holds the key to that 16-year period. Like, she's the one that was there when Osha was being trained. She was there with Soul. She was there with Master Indara. Not so much Torben and Kalnaka, but I think we have their story. I think their stories are very much figured out and tied up.
Well, and I think Kalnaka's is going to be filled in on the comic that's coming in the fall too. There's a one-shot comic run with him.
Yeah.
That I think is probably going to fill in those questions.
To extend it beyond the Four Jedi, also there's like heavy implication in episode 1 that Yord and Osha have a past, because Yord is kind of not surprised that Osha is murdering a bunch of Jedi. Even he was like, oh, she has some darker tendencies in her.
I think that a lot of these questions are kind of questions that will, they're secrets that were meant to be taken to the grave, and in some essence they were. And I don't think we're going to see some of these questions answered in like a season 2. I could see subsequent like comics, novels, other things that, just dive a little bit deeper into certain aspects of this story. I could see that happening. I do see, like, if we do get a season 2, it wanting to focus more on what happens moving forward. But yeah, before we get into, I think, Soul and Chimere and all of that, Nick, were there any questions that you had that were not unanswered, that were biting at you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think what Natacia brought up was really good points. I would love to know more about what happened in that 16-year period, more about what dynamic and what inciting event caused Osha to decide to leave or to get kicked out, because it seems like that's an open question as well. I did, like, the one thing that I really loved, and we talked about it at the beginning of the season, the one thing that I really wanted to see was someone willingly decide to go down this path. And Osha willingly has made that decision. Between obviously killing off Soul, but also in that decision, in that moment, to protect Chimere and May by going with Chimere. We saw her decide of her own free will, this is my route now, this is my path, and that was really cool to see. And I think it did open up a bunch of new questions that I really hope a season 2 answers. Why is the Green Muppet getting involved now? Why now at this point?
That Muppet.
Okay. Let's talk about. Let's pump the brakes.
Sorry, I have to throw my Yoda slander when I can.
Let's talk. Okay. I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum. I'm not going to yum anyone's yuck either.
Hearing that
is, I think Yoda being the last shot is a 50-50. It makes sense. Vernestra went to him to discuss the details of what happened, and 50% it is 100%. 50% it's fan service. Yoda is alive at the time, and that we could have a whole podcast episode about Yoda.
Especially with this book right here.
Strongly disagree with the Yoda hate. Strongly disagree. And we can kind of touch on this. We don't have to talk about Yoda.
You know, Chase, I agree with you. I would love to hear more.
We should let's arrange a Yoda podcast episode.
Yoda slander episode.
Yeah,
we'll get Alanis and Natacia.
I demand to be there.
I will be there to defend Yoda.
We sub out Luke for Alanis that episode.
Look, there's a lot of nuance to this. Number one, it is God's gift to Earth. Frank Oz is Yoda. We have to understand that.
That's true.
Yeah.
I refuse to hate on any of like Jim Henson adjacent creative
minds.
Yeah. Yoda is not perfect. Yoda was never meant to be perfect. Even in Empire Strikes Back, he is not perfect.
Because he's a liar. Okay.
I mean,
I disagree with him being a liar. I do believe, like in Yoda's Jedi way, he gives the truth when the truth needs to be shown.
True. What I will say in contention to that, and then I'll let it go. We can have our Yoda podcast another time. Yes. His decision to withhold knowledge until the time was right caused innumerous deaths in the High Republic.
Yeah.
Okay, well, someone in particular was holding information from a certain character, and that resulted in a lot of deaths too. His name is Anakin Skywalker.
I will say,
I got slander for him too.
Pump the brakes one more time.
Let's go.
We've talked enough about our little green buddy.
I got something to say about her going to Yoda as well, real quick.
Okay. As long as it's Acolyte related, we'll continue.
No,
on.
It is Acolyte related, and it also cultivates the saga as a whole. It's not just me shitting on Yoda. It's if she tells him everything, that changes the narrative of almost everything that we know about Yoda from the very beginning, because it goes back to the scene where Qui-Gon says Sith Lord. And Yoda looks at Mace, and he's like,
"Who fucking told him?"
Yoda also says something like he's like, it's like I forget something vague that's like, oh, the dark side could have been around this entire time, and when he drops it and moves on.
Let me. All right, tinfoil hat, right? Not just around Yoda, just around the Jedi Council, Jedi Order as a whole. In the same way, if we had irrefutable proof that like aliens existed, right? And there were aliens in Area 51. The reason there is a cover-up is because it's like the public can't know about this. There is an aspect of public safety to understand about aliens truly existing. Like it throws off worldviews, it throws off religions, it throws off a lot of societal understanding. We cannot just go out in public and say, hey, yes, everyone who said they were probed was not lying. It's all true. The same way you have to be careful with saying, hey, this horrible, horrible thing that we thought was gone isn't actually gone, because we believe it's one guy, maybe two, right? And this is something we can contain. And there's and kind of what Vernestra was talking about earlier in the show is like there's no need to tell anyone because we don't know all the facts. Yeah. We don't know everything.
Yeah.
There's no point in running and crying wolf and causing a panic not only amongst the Order, amongst the Senate, and amongst the people of the Republic.
Yes, like this is a good point.
That's a good point.
At this point, through this entire show, no one suggested or even uttered the word Sith on the Jedi side. of this show. And if Vernestra is going to Yoda, Vernestra is going to Yoda to tell him that her fallen Padawan, her Padawan that she thought was gone, because her comment out of, in my opinion, shock was, "You're alive." Like she thought whoever Chimere was long dead.
Yeah.
So we're still going down the angle of what we saw in episode 4, that this is a rogue Jedi, that this is someone who has fallen out of the Order. There's no even thought about the Sith at this point.
So I believe, headcanon and all you want, like behind closed doors, do the Jedi talk about the potential and possibility of the Sith still being a threat and present in the galaxy? Yes, I think they do. I think it's like, look, there's always a potential that, like, the Sith in canon, the Sith are not a species. They are an organization. They are an order of Force users that is the antithesis of the Jedi. Someone could find something that brings that back at any point in time. And I think the hubris of the Jedi over millennia, like, dug that hole deeper of like, no, they couldn't come back. No, they couldn't come back. So I think where the Acolyte takes place is we are at that threshold of like understanding and the Jedi being at the peak of what they are to this is the fall. And I think Vernestra doing what she does, I think her going to Yoda, what she's talking to Yoda about, like I think you're 100% right. I think she's talking about like, hey, Chimere, not dead. What do we do? You are the person, you are the best person we have to talk about this and what we should do. Because if he's alive and he's recruiting people, this could be bad. Is it the Sith? Probably not. But is there a potential? Maybe. So like I think he's the right person to go to talk to about this, especially, again, kind of like what I said, like Yoda tells the truth when the truth needs to be known. Yoda's not the person who's going to go around the Order and say, hey, everybody, the Sith might be back. Let's pick up our lightsabers and go to war. That's not what Yoda does. So yeah, like I think like my only thing with this, and I promise this isn't about Yoda slander. This is this is a general Jedi reflection I'm having. Is like I think that that we keep going back to this thing that you're talking about, like sharing information when it needs to be shared, and I think that the Jedi Order, especially the people who are high ranking, tend to be more withholding than they should about information. Now, do I think I agree? I don't think that Vernestra made a bad choice in not going to like the Senate and telling them everything that happened. I think that would have been a terrible decision. And I don't think it would have made sense to involve the Senate in that way. And give them the power to sort of like make decisions around something that is out of their scope.
Yeah.
You know, like, so like I actually, on its face, I don't disagree with her decision to just withhold that level of information. But I think throughout the season with Vernestra, we just keep seeing her make these decisions to sort of like withhold information from like even the High Council and kind of go on missions. And I think that there might be a small amount of people, and it may just be Vernestra and Yoda that know what's going on, you know, next season when she is going on like, you know, the hunt or whatever for like Chimere to like look for him, holding like May close, you know, to her probably that entire time. And I think that where this is likely to land is Vernestra is going to learn information that is going to be imperative, like to the Jedi needing to act, and she will either die before that information actually gets to the Jedi, or she will only share that information with Yoda. And like,
I think it's the latter. Yeah. I think she probably will die before anything. Jesus, Hereth.
That is a loud keyboard.
That is a loud keyboard. My goodness. Anyway, and
then may I add my 2 cents on this with Yoda? Yeah. I mean, with Yoda being around forever, I mean, one of like the major complaints that I've been hearing about this is, and then obviously for the people that have not read the High Republic would think that it's 1,000 years of peace. 1,000 years of peace. It's like just in general for that long stretch of time. Do you really think that peace is nothing's gonna happen? Like the idea that the Jedi and the Republic have been at peace for such a long stretch of time is just beyond implausible.
we also know it's a lie. I mean, that's like the very opening crawl of this series is a lie.
Cries in phase 1.
I mean, the Sith were never completely destroyed. Like that's like the one thing that so many people get wrong. The Sith were never. They were beaten. They were never destroyed.
Oh yeah,
the Jedi endured a lot of problems that persist in the High Republic, of which the era takes place of the Acolyte. But like for the people that haven't read the High Republic, like how do you think Dagon Gera became evil? Because when the Jedi were expanding to the Outer Rim and their reach across the galaxy, and when he was like given the idea that this place, Tanalorr, this safe haven, this place was so intriguing to him that he became obsessed with it. Like that was what
conflict always happens, especially if you're looking at something like the expansion of the Republic, which is based on how you want to interpret it, is the colonization of the galaxy, and the Republic reaching out to the Outer Rim and trying to bring star systems into the Republic. We don't have a ton of insight on how that went every single time. But like that's what it is, and there will be conflicts. There will be star systems that want nothing to do with the Republic, and we do see that all the time. You hear it multiple times in Star Wars. The Republic does not exist out here. And as the Jedi, as the Republic are trying to do this, yes, there will be conflict. We have the Nile, like that is conflict. That is not a time of peace. When you have marauders that are destroying hyperspace lanes and doing massive attacks on events and stuff like that, or on systems as a whole. So like it is one of those things, like it is a time of peace, as in the galaxy is not at war with itself the way it has been many times throughout the millennia. And I think it's just like there's a lot of nuance, and I think maybe this kind of does segue into a more different talk about Jedi soul, Vernestra, and all of that. Is like I think a lot of people like to put black and white statements on certain aspects of Star Wars, like Jedi good, Sith bad, Republic good, Separatist bad. Where I think if we look at stuff like Saw Gerrera, Saw Gerrera is a good guy through and through. He does some pretty nasty stuff.
Oh yeah.
But everything he's doing is a justified cause, because
not to everyone.
The one time when
Saw Gerrera did nothing
when he attacked
wrong.
the Imperial meeting and a bunch of children were unalive, then that was pretty bad. But
when we look at characters like that, like yes, Saw is a good guy. Saw is part of the Rebel Alliance. He's part of the Partisans, which is a offshoot of the Alliance, and it's just one of those things. Like he is actively combating the bad guys.
Yeah, he's an extremist, but rationally.
The Jedi are the good guys. The Jedis are the protectors of peace and security throughout the galaxy, right? That does not mean that every single person within the Jedi Order is going to be this paragon of goodness. And I think that's what I think is really frustrating about some discourse, is it's like Qui-Gon Jinn is held up on a pedestal for wanting to go against the Order in a lot of ways. Like, oh, he thinks he thinks he's above the Order because he's so smart and so wise. But then you have someone like Saul who does things differently. And look, here's the thing about Soul, and I think Natasha, you were talking about it, like, why doesn't he have a Padawan? I think that if we look at, like, if we had a pretend syllabus of Jedi Knight to Jedi Master, right? There's check boxes you have to meet to get up there. I think he got 7 out of the 10 check boxes to being a Jedi Master, and that's good enough to pass, but they were still like, you are not ready to have a Padawan. You're ready to be a master, you're ready to do the duties of a master, but you're not ready to have a Padawan. The aspects of Soul, to me, of what makes a good Jedi, the foundation is 100% there, and I think he excels in so many aspects of being a Jedi. His compassion, his caring, his desire to do good, his want to bring peace to the galaxy, and like the heart of a Jedi is there. He is impulsive, he is emotional, and he becomes irrational when those impulses and emotions get the best of him. And that is, I think, what the Jedi have tried to teach us so many times, is like, you cannot have these attachments. These things are what lead to the dark side. These things are what will tear you apart as a Jedi. And we see this in live action with Soul on Brendok. We see it time and time and again in the present day of the Acolyte, where he is making these decisions, and in his mind, he's doing the right thing. He is not doing any of his actions are not motivated by doing the wrong thing. He's not doing it for power. He's not doing it because it will only benefit him. He's not trying to get Osha off the planet to become a Jedi because yes, he wants a Padawan. That is 100% part of it. But he knows Osha wants to be a Jedi. And he knows that Osha is not happy here. And he wants to help Osha, and he lets his emotions cloud that judgment of like, does she need to be? Would she be better off with her family? Would she be happier overall staying with her family? And because she's too old, she will have an attachment to her sister that's obviously very, very, very strong, and she obviously cares for both of her mothers.
Yeah. Chase, well, as you're saying that, you know what you're reminding me of with like Osha's kind of character development? I wonder if Soul didn't step in and pull a Soul thing and still became a Jedi, if Osha would have had a similar fate to Iskat.
No, Iskat's, I think, and I'm sorry to shut that down so abruptly. Iskat became the way she was because of the era she grew up in. She grew up in wartime. She was a child forced to become a soldier. She was a child that was struggling as a Padawan, and they sent her to watch not only her master but all of her friends and fellow members of the Order be slaughtered. That's why Iskat became the way she is. And then every moment since then, she was basically cast aside because of the war. That's what drove her to the dark side.
So I will say one thing that I disagree with you, Chase, about Soul, which is that Soul's decisions around Osha and May were based on his preconceptions as to what the Coven was.
Sure.
He saw little bits of what the Coven was doing and immediately assumed that this was the worst possible outcome for these kids to get away from. That May had been marked by a dark ceremony. And even when Endara tried to talk sense in him to go, hey, the Force is viewed by different people in different groups in different ways, he was dead set that he was doing the right thing without having the full picture. And I think that was a very important distinction, because I think, when we see in episode 7, when he realizes that what he thought was a bad action by Mother Natacia, which causes him to, stab her right through the chest, and he realizes that all she was trying to do was protect her kids, his next interaction, his next fight with Coral, he basically lets himself get beat because he realizes he's made a mistake. And I think, that has been something we've seen playing out with multiple Jedi, and Luke Skywalker is another perfect example of that. Right? Luke Skywalker knows when he makes mistakes, whether it's in Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back or The Last Jedi. and reacts based on that emotional volatility. So I think that's an important thing to consider when we look at what choice of action Soul decided to take on Brendock that day.
No, I agree with you, because I think that he is a flawed person. I believe that in Soul's mind, he was only trying to do the right thing. I think that
absolutely. I don't think
he is a good person. Yeah. He is a person with a pure heart, and he makes mistakes.
Natacia disagrees based on that.
Because it'll be really hard to break me from thinking that Soul is not a good person.
Yeah,
about that point.
I feel like
good people are capable of doing the wrong thing.
We are the mediators. Cook.
Yeah. No.
Yes,
so I feel like you had me in so much of what you were saying, and I was like, yeah, I'm agreeing with a lot of that. I think that I want us to get away from like the good person, bad person dichotomy. I think the story that they are telling in this show is actually too nuanced to even plug people into those kinds of black and white like spaces. I don't think that Soul's a good person. I don't think that Soul's a bad person. I think that Soul is a person that made selfish choices. And I think that those choices harmed many of the people around him for the rest of their lives, and himself. I think that it is... To me, it is very hard to point to really any individual person in this entire show that I would look at and be like, that's a good person. Like,
Jackie?
Poor Jackie.
I mean, I'll bring up Jackie. I mean, Torben.
Pip was a pure individual. Pip did nothing wrong to no one.
Honestly,
my point, Torben just wanted to go home.
Pip, Jackie, Basil, you know what I mean? Like,
but Basil's a little sus, but I'll get.
Basil's the Sith Lord.
Basil is an
honestly,
Inquisitor.
I was completely on Basil's side in this episode. But anyways, my point is, I think that this show is actually trying to get us away from looking at these characters from this lens at all, which is why I kind of push back on the idea of him being a good person, because like, what qualifies him as that? Like, I think that he has a certain amount of empathy. I think that like in his heart, yeah, I'm sure he believes he's doing the right thing. I think a lot of people through the course of human history do things that they think are like the right thing that actually end up being like deeply historically harmful things to people. So like, I just and I think the show is much more interesting when you're looking at through the lens of these are all just complicated people making mistakes. And that's actually like why I really loved the second flashback episode so much, because honestly, it was a collection of people making choices that just continued to escalate the situation that they were in. I think that Soul probably, compared to everybody, made the worst kinds of decisions out of the group of people, but he is also not the only person who made bad decisions in that episode where things ended where they were. And like, I think that I am not a huge fan of Soul as a person, but I appreciated that. I do think that Soul did a lot of what he did because he felt he had a genuine connection with Osha. I believe him when he says that. I believe that he really thought that he was doing he was making a protective act, that he was doing something and I really do think he wanted to save both girls. I feel like there've been some commentary around that, like he just let May die. I was like, well, I mean, what was he supposed to do? Like,
it is. He has a trolley problem right in front of him. He has to pull the lever, and he's gonna pull the lever to the people who want to come on his side. Like, it's one of those things. Like, if we put ourselves in their shoes, would we have done something different? The one thing, and this is not just in the Acolyte, this is just an overall discussion of the Jedi, and it's something that I often get frustrated when people talk about the Jedi and the nuance of the Jedi, is there's lots of comparisons to real world things that people like to make, and we do not have a real world parallel to the Jedi. They have aspects of things, like people call them the space police. Yeah, kind of. Space priests in the space church. Yeah, kind of. Like space peace corps. Yeah, kind of, but we don't have anything that is all-encompassing like that, and we also don't have magic in the real world. So when we do,
David Blaine would like to have an argument with you.
You know, I do need Jedi card tricks.
Anyway,
that's what I need.
No, that's Sabacc tricks. Let me tell you.
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry, Jedi Sabacc tricks. What I do wish we could have more. Like a more nuanced discussion about with the Jedi, or the good or the bad, blah blah blah, and all that, is we have to understand that there is something called the dark side of the Force that we know is a factual thing, and it is a dangerous thing. We have seen how much it corrupts. When we look at dark side users and Sith and all of that, we see that it is dangerous. It does not end well. And so when you do have ample evidence of that, and it is a real thing, and you go to a planet and you see people using what is, you don't have all the proof, but it seems very much like they are playing with the dark side of the Force, and they are involving children with that. While I say you should leave it alone because you don't know all the facts of the situation, the correct answer is to leave this alone and say, hey, let's go back to the council. We need to talk about what's going on Brendok, because there could be something very dangerous happening there, and children are involved with this. What they did was irrational, rash, and it caused a lot of harm, like you said. But from not just Soul, but from any Jedi's point of view, you see someone using the dark side of the Force, and they are involving children. This is a dangerous and harmful situation from their perspective. And again, like I said, many different choices should have been made in this whole event.
Yes. Yes.
They should not have broken into the coven while that was going on.
No.
They should have not climbed that wall. They should have not have interfered. They should, so many other things should have happened, and they didn't. But I do firmly believe that the Soul's rationale was mostly sound. Some of what he did, like you said, very self-interested. I will get a Padawan out of this. The Jedi Council will look up to me for this. Like there are things he will gain out of the situation, but at the same time, this is a very potentially dangerous situation, and there are children involved. And as a Jedi, I feel the need to step in.
Yeah, because when you see him inside of the fortress, because you see him when Mother Natacia is pushing May and Osha to the ground, so you immediately think, oh my god, wait, why are they treating their children like this? And then you see Soul watching them in the forest where May is like force choking a bird under the bunta tree. So you think, okay, well, there's dark side tendencies and there's children being harmed. So then, therefore, and then the whole conversation with Soul needing a Padawan, I felt like it gave him like some sort of like divine revelation to be like, okay, that's my Padawan. I need to go save her.
He's like,
Dathomir witch told me, and that's what the Force told me. So I gotta save her.
He's like, Dathomir type witches, dark side, fighting pits.
Well, but let me ask this question: what dark side actions did we actually see? Because all we saw May do was hold that butterfly bird in place from Soul's point of view. All we saw Soul see the witches doing, what Mother Anastasia doing, was attempting to force push the twins.
if we go back to just Star Wars lore, you can sense it. Like you can sense and feel the dark side. When we see this throughout Star Wars, where people can feel like, oh, this is a place full of the dark side. I think it's safe to assume that the Jedi felt that there was a dark side presence.
I don't know if that's true.
No?
Like, no, because like in going back and watching these episodes again, earlier today, I was actually, kind of bits and pieces of Brendock. There was no sort of discussion about feeling the dark side. There was no sort of, Soul. When Soul goes to Indara and he is communicating his concern, you would think that if he actually sensed something like that, he would be very explicit in saying that was
That's
something.
Fair.
And
yeah.
like, he doesn't say anything like that. Indara does not seem to feel any sort of dark force either. And she, it seems, at least in the context of that episode, is like the more sort of skilled, Jedi or whatever. So like,
yeah,
it doesn't, to me, it feels like a lot of the feelings and anxieties and all of these things that he is exhibiting is coming from things that he's seeing with his eyes and misinterpreting. To me, it never felt like it was like, oh, I'm feeling the dark side, because why would he be the sole Jedi here on this planet feeling that?
Was that supposed to be a pun?
Pun intended.
The soul Jedi. We got you.
Anyway,
he's the sole survivor from a certain point of view.
Oh my god!
Not anymore.
Okay. All right. To kind of, I totally understand where everyone's coming from, but kind of to pivot off of what Nick just said, one thing I do want to talk about is one of my favorite parts of the episode, and this has been my least favorite part about like new Star Wars canon, is bleeding lightsaber crystals.
Oh, let me give you a little demonstration.
I remember
this. I kind of felt like that was
So-
coming. So what happens is, there's like a blue saber, and then like it starts gradually just like, hold on, let me get it down more.
Yeah,
It
grip
just
that a
goes
little tighter.
gradually
there.
up, bend up,
Okay,
bend up,
so-
and the
so
blue
let me-
goes away.
Thank you for
Thank you
for
the
explaining
recap.
to me like I'm five.
I definitely did not watch the
of course.
episode.
You can save the applause for later. Thank you.
Okay, so one of
Never.
there's been multiple things in the new Disney canon that I've really liked and really appreciated over the expanded universe. The bleeding of the lightsaber crystal has never been one of those, because I liked the synthetic sabers or synthetic crystals, the cracked crystals. I always felt like the bleeding of the lightsaber crystal, pouring all your anger and hatred into it, was very anime bullshit. It felt like, while yes, we have the Force and it is like mystical, magical power, when we get into this like very fantastical element of it, I'm like, okay, the one thing about Star Wars is it's always felt a little bit grounded. And when we start adding some of these, and this is why I don't really like the Mortis gods and stuff like that, like these very, very fantastical elements of Star Wars tend to not resonate with me as much. However, the Vader comic where he bleeds the crystal, way too over the top. Dagan Gera bleeding his crystal in Jedi Survivor happens very fast. The motivations are
Not
there,
really there.
but there's a rocky foundation to Dagan bleeding his crystal, and it happens very quickly. He basically presses the red button, is what it kind of seems like on his lightsaber. Osha strangling Soul and holding that crystal, and you see that crystal just slowly creep in red, and when she ignites it, you see the blade struggle to go red.
Yeah, like my presentation.
Sold me on bleeding lightsaber crystals. I am sold on it now.
Well, no, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the Younglings arc in Clone Wars, like, you learn that not only is the wielder of the saber sentient, but the crystal is sentient too. So to be able to tamper with something that is sentient, to have it bend to your will, I think that's a beautiful idea, and I love the fact that we finally saw it in live action.
Unnatural.
the way we see it and the way it is shown and the context around the scene where Osha has now learned the like one person she thought she could trust in this world is the person who has been lying to her and killed her mother. And that is how you turn someone to the dark side. That is how you get someone to bleed a lightsaber.
Also,
it's gonna be interesting to see.
I'm done.
Oh my god!
Oh, god damn it!
The proper use of apostrophes.
So I will, and I. Oh man. And
I agree with you, Chase. I think like, the way it was done with Dagon Gera, the way it was done initially with Vader, it didn't give you this sense of struggle that it took to actually bleed a lightsaber crystal. And I think this scene with Osha, because she's struggling with her emotions, but you can see the anger, and to have it, like, it almost felt like in that scene, and I've watched it again because that scene has lived in my brain since we watched it on Tuesday, like the crystal was fighting against her.
Yeah.
I thought that was super cool.
And to see that struggle and to have that symbolic nature of it being Soul's lightsaber, to your point, the one person she has trusted for the last 16 years.
The saber
I won't beat the horse, but
the saber that she used to kill her mom.
And also, it's like, I love the metaphor of like you're watching her allegiances change in real time.
Yeah.
It's that flip of the switch.
I also, and while if we go back to episode 5 and how visceral and brutal that episode was, watching someone get force choked and the pain that you see with Soul as like he's dying, like not that like, because like with Chimera and Yord, like it's very quick, very instant. You're like, well, we've never seen that in Star Wars. With this, it was very intimate, very emotional, very drawn out.
Soul shed a tear. She was shedding a tear.
Yeah, he's crying. And it's like, it's very obvious. He's not crying because it hurts. He's crying because he's almost expected this to happen, and it is Osha doing this to him, and he knows she's not right, but justified in what she's doing.
Yeah, and I think to me that's why he says, Osha, it's okay. That to me that's him trying to tell her he understands why this has to happen and why it is happening in that moment.
Also,
and he plays that moment so brilliantly. Like, he has been fantastic in that entire series, but that moment especially was just fantastic.
Agreed.
Chimera and Manny. I'm sorry, Lee Jong Jae and Manny Jacinto.
Yeah.
I don't want to discredit anyone else in the show. I think everyone has had their good and bad moments in the show, but Lee and Manny really knocked it out of the park with their performances in this show.
Yeah.
Like, I know we've talked about it before with the extent that Lee went to do this role. It is phenomenal in itself, but just what his performance brought to the screen, from the initial moments, like in episodes 1 and 2, and you kind of understand this character, to his little final moments. It's just like, he did so good. The final battle between Chimera and Soul, very Revenge of the Sith.
Yep.
Very like Pep elements. I haven't talked about it. Very Old Republic. Like
yes.
When the sabers are spinning around him and he just force novas them away, and you're just like.
To me, I even said on the reaction, it felt very like much like the Jedi games, like especially the entire episode felt like Jedi Fallen Order Survivor a little bit, like the set design and like the way that the fights are set up. It almost felt like a boss fight, and the way that Chimera's like evolving himself throughout each episode.
It's definitely one of those things, and maybe we can do a round table on favorite parts of this episode. But like that fight scene.
So we got a round table on this and Yoda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Coming up. Nice.
Yes.
Again, Yoda's a whole other episode. No, I do think that this fight, it's one of those things that I think that while episode 5 had a lot of spectacle and we lost a lot of people we cared about, the emotional weight of the fight in episode 8 really really hit hard because they're both fighting for Osha. Like this is like a mini duel of the fates of like,
yeah.
And neither outcome is very good. It's you either Soul wins and he gets to continue living the lie and gets to let Osha live in that lie, or Chimera wins and she learns the truth, but she also goes to the dark side.
Yeah.
I think it's time to let Luke have his spotlight because he's been quiet.
We've already talked about all the important parts of the episode.
Yeah, there's nothing else that happened in this episode. We should just wrap it up. Let's just wrap it up.
Wait. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna say, because I went on about it. The bleeding of the lightsaber was actually my favorite part of this episode. Let's go, Nick, Natacia, Hereth, Char, and if Luke has anything he could contribute as to his favorite part, we'll let him go. But Nick, what was your favorite part of the episode?
My favorite part was the culmination of Osha's journey, and I think not just Osha's journey, but Osha and May's journey, and the way that we saw them symbolically and literally shift places. At the start of this series, Osha was very much the person who wanted the Jedi to take care of May. Like, she didn't want to be involved. She wanted the Jedi to take care of her. And then we saw this shift over these last few episodes where in the finale, May was the one wanting to take Soul to the Jedi, to have him be held up for his crimes, for what he did. And that was so fascinating to watch. And I mean, in general, my favorite part was just watching Osha accept her role inside of the Sith ideology and want to continue that path. And I think that was so brilliantly handled through this episode.
And it wasn't coming on every Tuesday to do reactions? That wasn't your favorite part?
It was the favorite part of the episode, not the favorite part of my Tuesdays.
Natacia, what was your favorite part of the episode?
Yeah, I think for me, I feel similarly about like Osha and May and their and the culmination of their journeys, how they intersected. It's hard for me to pick just like a favorite scene. I think that one, I think I do love. I'm a fanfic girly. I'm a Pride and Prejudice girly. So like I loved the scene at the end with Osha and Chimera, the stranger, holding hands like with the lightsaber. Like that that shot was gorgeous, beautiful, such a great moment. And one of the things that meant why that scene in particular holds a lot for me, other than the romantic tension of it all, is like the two of them finding a sense of belonging, like an earnest sense of belonging in one another. And you could see very much that was Osha's journey throughout this entire show. And for May, there is just something so tragic about how she is just constantly and forever alone in this show. She starts off like, in this flashback in Brendok, surrounded by family, surrounded by feeling that she's exactly where she belongs. She doesn't need that same sense of belonging that like Osha has. She feels like she has it already. And slowly and surely, quickly actually, it's like taken from her. And throughout the course of the show, we just see her so isolated. And to see her in that even deeper level of isolation, going further, where she has now even lost herself, I just think that those two characters in particular and their placement in the story at the end of it is just poetry. Sad fucking poetry.
The thing about them holding hands, I very much got Last Jedi feel from the hut, almost. But the thing, and this is like playing Sith's advocate, while Chimera's intentions in all of this are not good. He is the bad guy. He got the pupil that he connected with. He clearly had tension with May all throughout the show, like from episode 2, when it's just like he's trying to like hey, you're doing it wrong, but I'm gonna help you, you're doing it wrong, to like episode 4 when it's just like, you are complaining the whole time, you are questioning me, like you're doing this all wrong. He's gonna kill you if you do it wrong, wink wink, nudge nudge. To him in episode 6, I think still is my favorite episode of this show.
Agree. Yeah.
And the conversation and like deep meaningful dialogue he has with Osha, and then that culmination to them holding hands looking out onto the ocean. It's just like, again, they're the bad guys, we don't root for the bad guys, but like he got what he wanted.
Are we not rooting for the bad guys?
I don't root for the bad
I think Natacia's rooting for the bad guy. But I think what's interesting too is that it showed two different viewpoints of getting what you want.
Yeah.
But by doing it in different means, because Chimera, through his entire interaction with Osha, is completely honest and completely transparent, and the entire relationship of Soul and Osha is built on a lie.
Well, I think even beyond that, like if you look at their relationship and the way that they communicate versus Anakin and Palpatine, where everything is built on a lie, everything is built on manipulation. While again, the intention of Chimera is not good. He wants power. He is an evil person.
I see through the lies of the Jedi.
He like you said, he is honest with Osha, and this is how I feel, this is how I view it. You are free to kind of come into my world and see this new perspective and see how that works for you. And like in episode 6, he says you can leave. You can leave at any time. The ship is right there, and I'm giving you a warning. If you take too long, you're gonna have to spend the night with little old me and cozy up, but you could leave if you want.
Also, I love how, despite like you said, like his tensions with May, he still has he's still looking out for May, because when May is like, I'm gonna turn her into the Jedi, he's gonna face his trial. He goes, if you do this, May, you are not making out of there like alive. You're gonna be arrested for what you did. So I love how like even then, I mean, even like after like they're done with Soul, Chimera is like, Osha, do you want to do this? Do you want to lose your sister? I can do this for you, but if you do this, she's gone. So I love how like even after like despite all such, he's still like also like even before them, like when you like May is about to like ignite the saber, Chimera's like, do it. Like he's like pushing her and like helping her. He still views her as his apprentice until he has to go to Osha.
I mean, Hera and Kanan will always be my favorite relationship in Star Wars, but Chimera and Osha are by far the most intriguing relationship.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much nuance and just like they're so bad, but I'm just
I
see where it goes.
And like last thing I will say about the two of them, I mean, I could literally just spend the rest of this time just talking about those two. I love them so much. But
Osha and Chimera episode after the Yoda episode.
That relationship is going to end so poorly.
It is going to end terribly, but we don't have to think about that yet.
If you read Rise of the Red Blade, it could end beautifully and terribly at the same time.
Oh God. The last thing I'll say is, yes, to all of the things about Chimera, is very honest with her, but like he's also very interested in making sure she feels like safe and in control, because like during that whole episode, like episode 6, he constantly has his back to her. He knows that she's there like the whole time. He knows that she's like following him and stuff, but it's more important for him to make sure she feels some sense of control in like what is happening in this situation. And I feel like it's just interesting as a juxtaposition to somebody like Soul, who again, good intentions. I truly believe he care. Like, he obviously loved Osha very much, right? Like, and I believe that. And I feel like he never really trusted her with the truth. He was really very much in control of like the whole situation of like her coming like to the Jedi Order and all of those sort of things. Like, she didn't really have real choices, which is kind of the whole point. Like, she was finally able to make a real choice, but like Chimere created the conditions for her to be able to make a choice. And that is not something that she ever had with anybody else. And yeah, I just love them. They are gonna end horribly, but I'm gonna be so happy for them until that happens.
Hey, the unknown regions are a thing. They have an escape route if they really need it. It's not going to happen, but it's there.
It's almost like it could potentially already be in the unknown regions, you know.
Hey, if Osha and Chimere get frisky, they're gonna discover their unknown regions. Let me tell you.
Jesus Christ!
Oh my God, I don't know how to follow that one up, but I will try to find a way. Speaking of the things that have not been mentioned yet by Natacia, you, and Nick, I'm gonna go with the fight choreography. Not only just like because of the Chimere versus Soul fight, I also like the Osha versus May fight and how they're basically fighting the exact same way because they're the same person. I love that little detail of how Osha is a lot more angry and she's like more frisky with her fighting, and like the way that it's shot, you can't really tell who is Amanda and who isn't in certain shots. It's like the way that they design that, I thought that was really good.
It may be a little cheesy, but I got so giddy when like they kicked each other's legs.
Yes.
It was so good. Good. Oh, it was so good.
And then we go to like Chimere versus Soul, and it's like Revenge of the Sith meets a martial arts movie. And like I love how they're fighting inside the tomb of Brendock, and it's like everything. It's like here, it's like this rotting corpse is being dragged out, and you're having it watched in real time as the truth gets revealed.
It's basically Star Wars meets a 1980s Bruce Lee movie.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, that's literally what the inspiration was.
It is cool
it
because
really nailed it.
Yeah, it's cool because of like the origins of Star Wars are like deeply rooted in like old samurai movies, and I think it's cool, especially with a movie like The Matrix that was very heavily inspired by those old kung fu movies, and having Carrie-Anne Moss be a part of this show, and then having like that style of action, like the very deliberate like impact of bones on each other, and that like really sudden hit, and seeing that so many times, even when the lightsabers are out, you're still getting those really rough impacts that you get from those kung fu films. And it's just like, it's cool to see like where the inspirations are coming in from everywhere with Star Wars. And this is like what I love so much about Vision Season 2 was just so many different perspectives coming into Star Wars. And I just like, that's one of the things I really liked about the choreography and the Acolyte was like, where it's no longer just like, what if we hit the swords a bunch of times, which is cool and fun and exciting, but it's like, what else can we do with that?
Yeah, and it's like, again, like not to steal what Luke's probably going to say, even though I know where he's going with this. I love how also it's like a parallel to both the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, because yes, the fight's more like Revenge of the Sith, but like the actual dialogue within the fight is very Return of the Jedi, with how like Chimere's pushing Osha and May, and how Soul is like kind of in the middle of all this. He's kind of like the Obi-Wan in the scenario.
Yeah.
Charlie,
Char, what was your favorite?
Hit me with.
So my favorite part was like there's a book I read a while ago. One of my favorite authors, James Luceno, finally got his flowers.
You take this away from me. You take this away from me.
Let me tell you, the book Parkin really got its flowers.
Hey,
well done, sir.
No, but he was mentioned in that book multiple times. By the way,
who are we talking about?
Who?
I'm sorry.
Obviously, is in his own book.
I have no idea who you're talking about. Probably someone with a stretched face. But anywho, my favorite part of the show was the depiction of the Jedi fucking up. That's literally, it's just a kind reminder to people that the Jedi are not perfect. And no wonder why you see all these Jedi fucking up, and then the people that don't like The Last Jedi are the same people that are dogging on the show because they're like, oh, well, the Jedi's supposed to do this, and Yoda's supposed to know this, and Yoda's supposed to do this, and the Jedi are supposed to be better than this. No, they're not perfect. Their hubris thinks that they're better and that they're on a higher tier than everybody, and then they have like this all-knowing, all-encompassing power that is better than everybody. They think that what they do is the correct thing to do, hence what happened on Brendok. Their failure there is what caused them to lose a lot of Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all they had to do was just wait and just follow the right protocol. But no, their hubris, their belief that they can do anything that they want and be a guardian of peace and justice, that's a whole flaw. The perfect Jedi is supposed to be a guardian of peace and justice. But in this show, we know that there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of covering up. There's a lot of dark deeds. Like, there's a lot of that in the show. And hence what happens with Osha. Because all Soul had to do was tell her the truth. That's exactly what Osha asked him before she offed him. Was like, why didn't you tell me? Just like how Luke asked Obi-Wan when they were on Bespin, why didn't you tell me the truth when you had the chance?
Oh, he's here!
I hear woke lawyer. I hear we're talking about the Wokalite.
Get Rhaenyra out of here. This isn't Sunday.
Chris, I'll give you the floor, but I've been wanting to talk for the last an hour.
So, so we're talking about my favorite James Luceno book. Tarkin, go ahead.
So my favorite part was the
Chris, you didn't give us your favorite part.
Oh my All right.
Luke, tell me what about the Acolyte, episode 8, 22 minutes into the show was your favorite part?
It was 11 minutes in, actually. But, no, Plagueis was my favorite part of this episode because it's just the vindication of, oh, they're not going to put him in, oh, they're not going to put him in, oh, they're not putting him in. It's too early. And I didn't buy that for a single second.
All right, sorry to cut you off, Luke. Chase, did you say the best part of the episode or the show?
Fucking
the episode.
The favorite thing about a show is a 5-second clip. That's crazy. Okay, go ahead.
It wasn't the show; it was the episode.
It was the episode. The episode overall. Your answer was also great, Charlie. Luke. Yeah. Anyways, who is this guy you're talking about? Who is this Glup Shadow?
So So
Grandma,
like my whole thing is that and I feel a lot of us have kind of maybe not as much as I have, but I have always thought that this needs to lead to Plagueis. Like, this eventually, no matter how long it takes, it needs to lead to Plagueis. And I just started feeling that, like, ooh, there's a chance he could show up. When they started talking about the virgins, when they started talking about creation of life, and all of that, just hinting at it. I'm like, there's no way that Plagueis isn't around during this time, because his whole MO is trying to figure out his immortality. He's trying to figure out how to manipulate the midichlorians to create life. Now, with him showing up for 5 seconds and being as fucked up little guy that I lost my mind. And
no, you don't say.
No, it just but like here's the thing. I still think Chimere is in essence Venomous. He's in Venomous's spot. I don't think Chimere knows that that Plagueis is there.
I think he does. I think he's his apprentice.
Sure. I do.
I don't.
That's not a very big cave.
We have to remind ourselves that Luke thinks that Chimere is not a Sith.
Just like there.
So how would he know?
No. All right.
Hey, Nick, hold
okay,
time.
Okay,
Thank you.
Hold on.
Yes, Chris.
Have you ever seen a Sith with those kinds of arms?
No. Chimere or Plagueis?
Chimere.
Oh,
I mean, because think about Kylo Ren was swole. right?
Yeah.
He wasn't a Sith. Chimere.
Okay, well, Anakin before the suit, like
Anakin was not swole. He was lean.
All right. Anyway, back to my whole thing.
I don't know
okay,
about that.
Pull up the dream scene. Pull up when he leans up in his bed.
Chris. So I feel like you were
Bane's pretty ripped. Bane is pretty ripped.
Yeah. So
Maul's pretty ripped too.
In half.
We're
gonna spend the next hour just interrupting Luke. That's what we're gonna do.
I'm stuck here.
So watch Luke's excitement for Plagueis, because you remember Sandhill from Attack of the Clones, the guy who's representing the Intergalactic Banking Clan on Geonosis, the meeting that happens to like form the Separatists. It's just you see Plagueis as this menacing, red-eyed, Mune, long head. All you hear is the banking clan will sign
He needs to have the voice of Imperfect Cell. Be like, oh yes, Palpatine.
I think they're gonna give him a very menacing.
We're gonna go to Scipio, be with the
voice.
Taxers.
I'll voice him.
See, here's the thing. Leslie Headland is one of the biggest EU girlies out there. Like, she got this show and she straight up said, my inspiration was EU.
Yep.
And one of the biggest EU books that have come out before the Disney acquisition was Plagueis. Plagueis was one of the last EU books created.
Yes.
Before the acquisition. And the way that she, just by showing him for 5 seconds, the possibilities are endless now. So many other questions are being asked. And I have to say this about the whole Plagueis showing up thing. A certain creator once wanted Plagueis in this show, right? He got what he wanted and absolutely hated it. This just proves to everyone in our fandom that he doesn't believe his own shit. And he doesn't do anything with that.
Here's the thing about Plagueis, and we can roll it back to a couple of weeks ago where I was convinced he was going to be involved with the story, but we weren't going to see him. I'm first of all, I'm super glad we got to see him. I think he looked incredible.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Perfect for the horror genre.
The way he was shown, not just the costume or not just the makeup and the costume or however they did it, just the hand coming out.
I would have been okay
fingers.
with that.
And based on what we know about Plagueis, he is the character that is always lurking in the shadows.
Yes.
And him doing that in the cave was incredible. He is behind the scenes of everything. I think you're 100% right. I think I don't think that either Plagueis or Chimere were involved in any way on Brendock. I believe that he knew what was happening on Brendock.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
He was very interested in it. And I believe that if we do get a season 2, and Plagueis is obviously going to be a part of that, it will be revealed in some way or shape or form. He very specifically wanted Chimere to seek out May. He was he's like, this child, the Force was involved with creating this child. The Force was perverted and manipulated in a way I've been trying to, and this happened. We need this child.
So this is where my point goes to, right? Because in the Legends novel, he after he captures Venomous, he goes and tracks every place that Venomous is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And what has Chimere been going on and doing this entire time? Looking for
leading the Knights of Ren.
No. Char. Seriously, let's have this. Stop.
Char,
right.
get NCAA 25, you rube.
Hey,
I'm looking at it right now.
Char, no, you had the perfect
Let me have
opportunity.
this.
You could have said for the triplets. Come on, missed
Chris,
opportunity.
Yeah, the triplets.
Chris.
Mustard Coral being the Sith. Apparently,
Chris, of
ended up not being
episode
a Sith.
8. Let me get this back on track before we talk about college football. What was your favorite part of this episode, Chris?
Soul and Chimere's fight.
Hey, we're agreed on that.
Full
That's
circle.
That is perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I love the references to episode 3. I had no problem with the crouching tiger, hidden Jedi moment, although I knew as soon as it happened, people were going to have a fit online. I loved. Actually, no, I take that back because it's a tie.
Yes.
It's going.
Yes.
Yeah, the other thing. Yeah, go ahead. No,
So
I haven't. Yeah.
Soul and Chimere's fight, and then Osha bleeding the crystal.
that was mine.
Yeah,
I don't know if you were watching, but like I was not sold on bleeding lightsaber crystals until the Acolyte. I absolutely loved that scene. I think there was just there's so much weight to that scene that was just so good. It was represented so well. But all that being said, and Chris, we can get you in on this as well, obviously. Season 2. Let's just say there is a board meeting going on right now at Lucasfilm saying it's greenlit. You're going to do it. What do we want to see in season 2?
Lando Calrissian's grandfather.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Geode in a cantina. That's the one thing this season was missing, was Geode in a cantina.
Plagueis was hiding behind Geode.
No.
What are you talking about?
No, Chris, this is what we're going to see. We're going to see Landonus Balthazar Calrissian the First.
That's his grandfather.
Geode is actually under the moniker Darth Granite.
Third.
Yeah.
Not
So
Darth
what I think is going to happen is Plagueis is just gonna keep popping up every one often, but he's gonna be the one that takes out almost everybody, and he's going to take Osha. This is where he's gonna keep eyes and tabs on Chimere, see what he's doing. He's going to let Chimere train Osha to the point where he's like, all right, that's all she needs to know. I'm gonna teach her. I'm gonna take over. This is my apprentice now, and he's going to take out Chimere. He's gonna take out Vernestra, and he and Osha are going to start kind of figuring it out because he's going to ask Osha questions. She's not gonna have all the answers, but she and May are the two answers that he is needing to get to the goal that he eventually gets to. Whether the Jedi foil that later on, and they get in and somehow May and Osha have to not exist anymore for him to kind of go back to the drawing board. But I think May and Osha, obviously, they are the main antagonists and protagonists here. But Plagueis himself is going to be a huge pushing, obviously, in the back. But I think Chimeras probably end after next season.
I will say one thing.
Wants to be the true master.
I will say one thing before I go that will happen in season 2 of the Acolyte. It's going to be Osha and Chimere.
Oh God!
Chimere's going to drop his voice an octave.
Oh,
You're going to hear some Barry White in the background.
Okay, wait, what is there?
We're going 18 plus here, folks.
It's going to cut to Plagueis in another room, just hearing the music bumping and just hearing like, wow.
What is their ship name?
Osha's
What is their
training
ship
must be
name?
going really well. I hear a lot of clapping.
I can't stand you.
As I said
cannot
before,
stand you.
as I said before, they're gonna discover their unknown regions.
Oh my God!
Okay. Here's the thing that I on top of that, like unironically, unperversely, in the same way we did get like adult intimacy in Andor, I do want acknowledgement that there is like this carnal desire between the two. Like there is this like they want
desire for no reason.
They want each other physically. And they're giving into their emotions, and they play that into and I don't want them to do like having sex is the path of the dark side. Follow space.
Osha's gonna just shoot
Oshamir,
out lightning.
I was thinking.
Thank God you said hands.
Osha.
Wait, so let me connect. So let me like do a little bit of like a rhyme scheme here. So we have Oshamir traveling to Dathomir while watching Reigns of Castamere. Sad day.
Ooh.
But
But he's not
what I
I'm
what
going
I
to say one more
want-
thing, and then I'm gonna sign off and
Chris.
stop distracting things. Thanks to Chimere's workout plan, I'm the envy of all my friends. Love you all.
See, Chris, we got to get you in the workout chat, WhatsApp chat, and the fitness chat.
Oh yeah.
I have yet to join that, but
you need to download
yeah.
WhatsApp. But the
Bye,
thing,
y'all.
are you heading out, Chris?
Yeah, I'm out.
Bye, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah. But Luke, what I was trying to point out is the answer that you seek about how Plagueis factors is in the group chat. Leslie already talked about it. Go look in the group chat in Discord.
I will later. I'm not doing that right now.
No, neither am I.
I want the same way, like what Nick was saying, is the same way we saw Osha go to the dark side of her own volition. I want May to go to the light through her own discovery with Vernestra. I don't want Vernestra to like push the Jedi teachings down her throat. I want May to have that sense of self-discovery and being like, not that the Jedi are the good guys and the only good guys, but understanding like the path of the light is the path of balance and all of that. I want to see I want to see May's, let's call it a redemption arc, because I don't want to call it that, because it's like, I feel like
Not
there's more
really
to
a
it.
redemption
There's
arc.
more
Yeah,
to
it's
it
more
than
to
that.
it. Yeah, for sure.
I just want to see her get to the light side in an earnest, believable, and meaningful way that has like a lot of emotion and weight to it, and you understand that sometimes it is hard to get to the light. Like the way we saw it with Kylo, like the pull of the light was like difficult when he's trying to be something he's not. With May, I think we can have this thing of like, she gets to relearn everything, and the way that Iskat got to learn about her family in Rise of the Red Blade and understand that like there was something that was taken from her, but she kind of made peace with it. I want to see just her have that moment of like, I understand like how the Force works in a way, and I understand how the world works, and I want to be a better person than I ever could have been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah, I love this comment in the chat right now. Maybe it would be a redemption arc for Vern too. Like, that's, to me, that's really what I personally want to see in like this next season. Like, I'm really hopeful that we're gonna get a lot of Vern and May kind of working through their shit together. I think like the one thing that gives me a little nervousness is just sort of one, I'm glad that it was not Vernestra that had any part in her losing her memory, right? Because then that would be a really messed up dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah.
But Vernestra does know a bit about like what happened to May, and not everything, of course. And I'm hoping that there can be a level of like honesty and sincerity and like truth between the two of them, and that Vernestra will kind of come back into a version of herself that has maybe been like dormant because of like many of the things that she's seen and experienced.
Mm-hmm.
I think that relationship has just like a lot of potential, and I'm really interested in seeing that. Of course, I want to see all the Chimere and Osha stuff.
Yeah,
it's a given.
Where like that's gonna happen. That's great. But like I feel really excited about like what is the potential between Vernestra and May specifically. And honestly, May's journey in general feels important to me at this stage because so much of her agency has been taken away. So much of everything that she has had has been taken away, and I don't want to watch a story of her suffering over and over and over again. Kind of to your point, Chase, I want to see something. I want, even if she doesn't survive to the end of the story, like I want her to reach some place of like peace, or I have found my place in the world, like something.
I want it to be on her terms.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I was gonna say, is that, May's story arc to me, as we watched it unfold through season 1, was a person whose path was controlled by outside forces.
Yeah.
Whether it was the Coven, whether it was Chimere, she didn't have a lot of agency for the role that she was in when we saw her at the start of the season. And whatever path it is that she goes with Vernestra, whether it's, coming into light side and utilizing Force abilities, or what I want to see is for her to be able to control her destiny in whatever that may be. That's the thing that I think would show such a growth for her. At the same time that we're seeing Osha do the same thing with Chimere, because Osha now is very much on her own path and free to make her own choices where she wasn't necessarily able to before. I think it's going to be kind of interesting to watch that dichotomy unfold in a season 2.
Yeah.
Also, the question I hope they kind of erase, if Osha and May ever encounter each other at some point late into the show's run, is does a part of May really deep down still have some bits and pieces of this? Yes, her mind got wiped, but is it still subconsciously in there?
Vernestra said that the last memory she had was when she was 8 years old.
Yeah.
So there's going to be, we can assume there's something in there. There's something about Mother Coral and Mother Natacia and the Coven and her sister.
The moment that she finished the Ascension, I feel like that was when her memory got cut off.
The one thing that I will say is maybe a little bit of a critique is it's letting my little toxic fandom menace dark side out, is the mind wipe felt very convenient.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not the first time we've seen it. Obviously, Knights of the Old Republic is kind of what made it really famous. But that was that's kind of, but that was a big thing. There was it was we don't do this, basically ever, because of the implications it can have. It very much felt like Force Speed, where it's so many things in Star Wars would be changed if you used this ability on a consistent basis. In Phantom Menace, they used Force Speed in the very beginning, and it's Obi-Wan's running through the gates very slowly. Why don't you just use Force Speed to get through it? It felt like one of those moments where it doesn't ruin the show. It's not lore breaking. It's just this felt like a very, very convenient way to get May to Coruscant and not be in jail. And I'm not a writer. I don't have a better option than wiping her memory to do that. But it just it was one of those things where I was this is a choice. It works. It makes the plot make sense. But I was we're wiping her. We're Men in Blacking her. Okay. All right. Cool.
Well, and Chimere did say he didn't know whether or not it would work. So for all we know, this is a temporary thing that, as part of her journey in season 2, it's going to start to unlock.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally fair. Yeah.
It just felt hey, we need to put May on a shelf for a while. Here we go.
Yeah, agree.
We need to wrap her story up, and this kind of goes into maybe the largest criticism I think a lot of people have had, is just the length of the show.
Yes.
I feel like we talked about it last time. I'm not a big proponent of longer seasons overall. I just want... I do think the episodes could stand to be longer. I do think that both episode 8 and episode 5 proved it's not about the length of the episode always. It's what you fill that time with.
Yes.
Because episode 8 and episode 5 were not incredibly long episodes, but they felt very full. They felt very much complete stories that were leading into the next thing. My whole thing with long seasons is I think it prevents people who are not watching the show every single week when a new episode premieres. It prevents people from watching that show when they see something has 16, 18, 20 episodes, or even 12 episodes. I don't want to get it, because people are talking about The Boys right now, and The Boys just wrapped. Did it just wrap up?
Wrapped today.
Wrapped today. It's 8 episodes. Yep.
And I have so many people coming to me and saying, "Oh, you should watch The Boys. Even if you don't like superheroes, you're going to love The Boys." And I'm like, "That's fair. I don't want to watch that much content. Like, it's just so much." And while, yes, these are their own contained stories, I do feel when we look at something like The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, Acolyte, Ahsoka, Andor, it almost feels like you need to watch all of this stuff. And when we get into the idea of like, oh, every single season is going to have 16 episodes, like I think people will lose interest in certain things. If they're more into lightsabers, they're not going to want to watch Andor season 2 or vice versa. But I do think every single episode of The Acolyte could have served by being 15 minutes long.
I will say this: it's either you give me hour long eight if you're gonna do eight episodes, make them minimum an hour long, or
15 minutes would be fine too.
Or you give me 12 episodes, and the minimum is 45 minutes. I feel like that's not much to ask. Other TV shows that are absolutely smashing it out of the park are doing it successfully. Why can't Star Wars?
I think that Disney needs to stop screwing around with the story.
Yes.
I think more so than anything, watching this now as a whole, you can see where there were complete storylines that were broken, that were separated, that were played with. Disney needs to trust that the person trying to tell the story will tell the story, and whatever that length may be. And I've said it before, let the story determine the length of the episode. Because, Chase, you're exactly right. Episode 5 was a banger of an episode. It moved a lot of plot, and it did it in a short amount of time without feeling rushed, in my opinion. But too many times in this series and in other series, you can tell that someone else's handprints have come in and moved things or cut things
out of
or
touch.
sped
Studio
up
executive
things.
came into the room, was like, "Hi, this is a nice show we have here. Can we cut this out of the show?" And the editor's like, "Oh."
The editing was so painful. The editing was so painful in the show. I really agree with all of that. I mean, you know, I could have watched 20 episodes of this, but
I'm with you. I'm with you.
But I think that the point that you're making about it isn't about like the amount of episodes. It's about letting the creative people behind the show inform how long and what the final product of the content that we're going to see. And that just isn't what we got with the Acolyte, and it felt like it. As much as I would have loved to get like more episodes, I honestly think that an 8 episode, again, like hour-long lengths, or like my core issue, the thing that I feel suffered the most for me in watching this show, with kind of the content cut up in the way that it was we did not really get enough of characters just interacting with each other,
100%.
just being in conversation with each other, that. Like, it just felt like we were jumping from action to action to action point, like constantly throughout the course of this. And the episode, like, part of course, everyone loved the Oshamir episode, but like what was so great about it was it actually allowed these two characters to just be in space together and talk. And I actually even love the stuff with Soul and May. May constantly trying to like get him to say what happened, to admit what happened back on Brendok. I think that we just didn't get spaciousness with these characters at all. And I think Yord and Jecki are like the biggest examples of why it bothers me that they did that, because I actually really would have loved to see so much more Yord and Osha kind of connecting together.
Yes.
I would have loved to see more of Soul interacting with his current Padawan.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I feel like we really like lost a lot of that sort of
or even like Jackie with Osha. It's like, how is the past Padawan going to interact with the new guard, and how that relationship with each other?
Kay makes a good point, and Natacia, I know it's a point that you have made multiple times on Twitter, and you've hit the nail on the head every single time. They trusted Tony Gilroy. They basically let Tony Gilroy do what he wanted to do with Andor. You can tell that he set out to tell a story, and he was allowed to tell that story the way that he wanted to. So why wasn't Leslie Headland? Because I would like to believe, and I truly do believe, that this is not the way that she wanted to tell the story that she wanted to tell.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this does come down to, look, I have no sources. This is literally a trust me, bro thing. This does feel like they're in the editing room with Leslie and the writers when everything had been completed. Is they were like, the statistics show that people stop watching after this amount of time. The statistics show that if an episode goes on for too long and that there's this much dialogue, people tune out. This is when, you know, all the data we have from people interacting with Disney Plus on the apps and on the website, this is the data we have. You need to cut this down. This can only be this many episodes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
It felt like like you said, it felt like the executives were like, what is the minimum length you can take to tell this episode? Not what would best serve this episode.
I want to give everyone involved a little bit of benefit of the doubt, because I do think it is a double-edged sword. Because if you and I'm just going to use Leslie Headland because I don't know her, but let's just use her as an example. Is, let's say she wanted to have 10 hour-and-a-half long episodes. That's how she wanted to tell her story. And I can see someone saying that's not going to work. No one will watch this. They will get bored. And you have to rein that in. It's just how much oversight.
Oh, here comes Luke.
But here's the thing, is it's like, yes, it works for you. Yes, it works for the High Republic fans, and that's great. And it would work for me, but it's like, it's not going to work for everyone. And we do have to understand, like, I know it's a cliche statement, like Star Wars is for everyone. We do have to make sure that everyone gets something out of this, and we're not just catering to one person. I do think Disney had some meddling with this, and I do think they had a lot of overreach into taking quality out of the show to fit their statistics, to fit their data, saying this is how shows should be, to get the most engagement and most viewership, to boost those numbers for all the investors. That's what it feels like. But on the other end of that blade is, we do have to rein in the creatives sometimes. I think is a great example. Is like, Andor is my favorite show. So many people find that show incredibly boring. I'm in the same boat. I want 32 2-hour-long episode Rogue Squadron series.
Yes.
I want every button to be described in the X-Wing and on the TIE Fighter. I don't care if the entire episode is dedicated to that. That's what I want. But I know that's not what everyone else wants. And so I know that they're going to have to rein that in to make sure that it's digestible and palatable for as many people as possible. Because at the end of the day, it is a company and they want to make money. But I do genuinely believe with what they did with the Acolyte, they want to tell interesting and compelling stories. With what they did with Andor, they are willing to go outside of the box, to not be cookie cutter. Here's your lightsaber. Here's your blaster. Here you go. They use the Force. They're willing to take these chances with these shows. I think every show has shown that in one way or the other.
Yeah, agreed.
But it's so painfully obvious that someone at Disney was like, we have to chop this. It's not going to engage the way we want it to. It's not going to meet the standards.
Not to sound like a grifter, I have my conspiracy theory for who it is. I think it's Bob Iger. Because he test screened episodes. He said it before Celebration 23.
It is. I'm not going to say I have no knowledge of this. It's just me going off of intuition and feeling, is that they had parameters they had to meet, and they met them, and the show suffered from it.
I just don't understand. I just don't understand it. Like, why? Like,
you know what, Luke? How about you schedule a meeting with Bob Iger and figure it out? Okay.
I mean, I feel like I should, but like House of the Dragon, for example, they're willing to take as long as the episodes are willing to take,
and that also is an 8-episode season.
Well, every fucking time. I don't understand. Why is it so bad to take the concept of give me an hour 5 minutes
but
to tell that story? Why? Why is it so difficult for Star Wars to understand that you can have a good story and have it be compelling, even if it's longer?
Nick, go ahead, because I don't know if we're thinking the same thing.
We might. At the end of the day, I don't want them to approach it from a prescribed time length.
Agreed.
I want them to allow them to tell the story. I think, House of the Dragon is longer episodes because the story dictates that it needs to be a longer episode, because there is a lot of nuance and depth being told in that story. And I'm not saying that's not going to be the case for Star Wars. Before you go there, I knew what you were going to say, right? But I think that the story needs to dictate the episode length. And I think in this case, I agree with Chase. Someone came in and said, here's your box. Keep it within this box. And the few episodes where they were allowed to come outside of that box, and the season finale was one of those. It was the longest episode of the season.
Yeah.
You saw what the story but you saw what the story could be. To me, episode 8, I took away from that no one touched that episode. That they allowed Leslie and the editing team to craft the episode as they saw it. And as a result, we got a quality story from the first start of that episode to the end of it.
And give the fucking people a goddamn chance to tell the fucking story then.
Well, here's
what
my
I'm tired of, is that everybody shits on Star Wars for not being good, and that's so annoying.
Here's the thing, and we were kind of thinking different things, but Luke, to address you, is HBO has a very long and storied history of very long episodes. They are, when it comes to HBO television series, even before Game of Thrones, they were groundbreaking. Like from Oz to The Sopranos to 6 Feet Under to Game of Thrones. They have the reputation to be able to do that. And I think that Star Wars being one of the largest franchises in the world, there's no reason they shouldn't be allowed to do that. I think Disney's trying to play it too safe. They're just trying to play it safe. I agree. But what I do want to say to maybe cap that off is, despite all of that, I do want to give props to Leslie and the writers and everyone involved. What the hand they were dealt and what they did with that hand was incredible. Yes, so many parts of this show could have been so much better if we just got 4 more lines of dialogue between Osha and Yord before we lost Yord. Like a moment with Jecki and Sol to show that maybe Sol did grow as a master, that where he failed with Osha, he learned. And that's why Jecki did so well and was so brave up against the stranger. Those moments deserved to happen, and they didn't. And it's so sad that they didn't. But despite all of that, we got a very interesting story. We have characters that we care about. We have characters like Jecki and Yord that all in all didn't have that much screen time, and when we lost them on screen, it hurt a lot. And I think that is, look, the dude bros are gonna scream about this. Leslie Headland did an amazing job with this. The show could have been better, and we could go on and on about how the show could have been better, but I really do think Leslie flexed her Star Wars lore knowledge. She flexed her storytelling knowledge. She flexed her directing knowledge and all that experience. And she made a really, really cool show that I think tons of people enjoyed and tons of people want more of. And so I want to give props where props is due.
Yeah.
Can I just, and one thing I just kind of want to say about all of this is, I am hopeful that because of, I think, like a lot of people having such a positive reaction to this season, and to the writers room, to Leslie, obviously they're going to be like the fandom menace assholes. What are you
Yeah.
going to do? Like
Gonna happen.
we can't get rid of them. But like, I think that largely a lot of the discourse and the discussion around this show has been like, very positive and and so much excitement around these characters, even characters again that we even like had very little time with. I hope that this is an opportunity for executives to see this and give Leslie more spaciousness, if we get another season, so that we are not having the same issues like next time around. Because I think that that's what it's going to come down to. I was I was having some hope that because of Andor's success, and again, we do have like the people who are like, it's boring, like whatever, but I think that like it's a very positively received show, that hopefully whatever happens in like this next season of Andor is so fantastic that like I think hopefully the combination of that, the combination of the positivity around this current season of the Acolyte will result in trust from the studios in Leslie's creative process, and like just honoring the story that the writers want to tell, the writers and the directors want to tell in the way that they want to tell them. And last thing I will just say about them is like, I think that with a writer's room, with the level of diversity that we are seeing, which is unheard of in Star Wars, I think that this was always going to be a challenge because of that. But I think that this shows the highlight of this show is being able to see something, a piece of art that was put together by a collection of people with experiences so completely outside of the scope that we regularly see in Star Wars. And I think that was like a huge reflection on like the quality still peeking through despite like studio interference. I hope that we get a writer's room as diverse, and like not just a writer's room, really, like on every part of the production, actually, like behind the scenes. I hope we see more of that in further work around the Acolyte if we get more seasons. But more importantly, I hope we get to see more of that just generally, like in Star Wars.
I agree. Yeah, I think, and what's so crazy is like, I think it's diverse in many diverse ways, like just the backgrounds of these people, like who they are as individuals, their experiences, like what they like about Star Wars as a whole, like so many aspects of the team that put this show together. They came from so many different places, so many different walks of life, and it showed. And I think we got one of the most creative and interesting shows we've gotten so far.
Yeah. For sure.
But as we are past the 2-hour mark,
hooray, Disney money now, right? That's what we said last week. Yeah, Disney money now. Yes.
You have to praise Disney for 2 hours straight.
Of course.
So now we have to have a witch hunt for Kathleen Kennedy. Like we really.
Oh no, we gotta get the grifters now too.
It's just destiny.
No. This is the 6th live action Disney Plus show that we've gotten so far, which is kind of wild to think about. So coming from Mandalorian to the Acolyte, and obviously Mandalorian has gotten multiple seasons, but we have 6 full shows that have aired. So I want to, like, as a closing thing, do a quick, absolutely, yeah. Give me those Mickey bucks.
Exactly.
Not
clone
sponsored.
cash.
I think it'd be fun to do like a little ranking from least favorite to most favorite, is like I like to say with Star Wars, or worst to best. All the shows.
I would
start with you because of your groan.
Shouldn't have put myself on the spot like that.
Also where we can find you. Also, because it will be kind of the last.
Okay. So I'll start with where you can find me. You can find me on Twitter and TikTok at NDWiseGuy, as it says down here beside me, which I'm sure will make Charlie Johnson very happy. I talk about the High Republic on both Twitter and TikTok, so please feel free to come along and interact. In terms of my rankings from least favorite to most favorite, how do I do this in a way as to not piss Luke off so I can come back sometime?
Hey, don't worry. Hey, I'll let you back in. Hey, you got my vote, buddy.
Hours just around the corner, baby.
Luke's got nothing. As long as Hereth and I and Chase vouch for you, Luke's nothing.
You're
nothing.
always, both of you.
Majority vote of pod vote. Majority pod vote.
So I would say my least favorite would be the Book of Boba Fett, and that's simply because we had too much of the time of that series taken to talk about Mandalorian season 2.5. I think the story. Anyways, I could go on. I'm going to stop that. Number 5. I don't want to.
Do it.
No, I would say
whatever your heart tells you.
I would say Ahsoka, and it's just because it felt at times that she was not the main character in her own story. 4 for me would be Obi-Wan Kenobi, and not because it wasn't good, just because I felt it was another one that needed more room to breathe. I would put Mando at 3, simply because the quality has been up and down. Season 2 being the cameo season never sat well with me. For me, the Acolyte sits at number 2, and I think it goes to what we talked about. The story was not the weak point here. I think the story that was told was gripping. The characters that we had were great. I wanted more at the end of every episode, and I think that it opens up the most possibility for where they can tell stories.
You're allowed to have a shitty opinion. That's fine.
Hey, hold on.
and number
Nick,
1 for me is Andor. I think Andor, because it was the one that was given the room to tell the story that it wanted, it was able to tell the best story that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Good one.
Natacia.
Oh wow. I'm on the hot seat. Okay. Yeah, Book of Boba Fett for all the reasons you already said. And I will never forgive them for killing off the Tuskens again. I'm just so angry still about that. And like just having Mando randomly in the anyway.
Yeah.
God, this is hard. Oh no, am I actually gonna say this? You know what? No, I'm gonna put the Mandalorian next. Okay, I'm gonna put the I'm gonna put the Mandalorian next. Listen, I don't dislike the show, but like it just feels like very like popcorn. It feels like very empty, and I think that's fine. It's good popcorn. But yeah, it's not a show that I particularly often feel the desire to revisit. I will say that. After that, I think I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to say with Ahsoka, and it hurts me so bad.
Wow!
My literal favorite character in the entire Star Wars universe, but like, yeah, they did my girl dirty in that in that show. I was like, girl, where are you? Anyway, I still love Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. I enjoyed many elements of the show. I just feel like it was all over the place, and she was in it nowhere near as much as she needed to be. And for a character like Ahsoka that always gets decentered in every story she's in, it was really insulting to have that happen to her, like in her own show.
It's true.
Why? So like, okay, this is when things get really hard. You know, I will say Obi-Wan Kenobi. Up until recently, I've said pretty consistently that that's my favorite live action show up until pretty recently. But I don't know. I think there are aspects of that show that I felt leaned too heavily into territory that we have like seen again and again and again and again. And I loved all of the like Obi-Wan, Vader, Anakin stuff. But at a certain point for me, I'm like, when are we gonna move on? Like, so I wish that there had been a little less Vader in that season and a little bit more of really anybody, anyone else.
Don't talk to that guy.
Yeah. So and I guess it comes down to Acolyte and Andor, and I'm so sorry. Andor comes next. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it.
Andor comes next. I love Andor. I think do I think that Andor is probably technically the more quality show? Yeah, I do actually think that that's true. But when I put those two shows together and I think about the show that like brought me more emotion, the show that like I feel like was doing more like interesting sort of challenging things for the audience, I actually think Andor does a lot, but I do think that this show, The Acolyte, does a bit more of that for me. And I'm gonna be honest, just seeing people that look like me more like on the screen is like a factor for me. And one of the big things that like Andor will always get knocked down a peg for me always, and why for the longest time I did have it after Obi-Wan Kenobi, is it would be really great if Andor felt like more of a central character in his show. And I would really love for characters of color to have the same weight as like all of the like white male characters in the show. Like it drives me nuts. Like and like in every rewatch, it like bugs me more and more. It's beautiful storytelling.
Yeah.
But the people of color on that show really get shortchanged big time. So like I hope we're not seeing more of that in season 2. But yeah. That's my ranking.
Yep.
All right. I love it.
And then Josh, where can we find you?
Oh shit. Yeah, sorry. Hi. So you can find me on Twitter at NKNAPPER, where I pretty much have only talked about the Acolyte like incessantly for days and days now, and probably will continue to do so. And I'm about to go on an anime journey, so we're gonna I'll be talking more about like my anime content soon. And then on TikTok you can find me at NMKNAPP. Same thing, but like I'm a lot less smart on TikTok.
Oh, that's not true at all.
Don't sell yourself short.
Wait. You know what? I love the like silly videos, but like if you really want to get me like worked up about something, find me on Twitter.
Natacia, have you seen Attack on Titan? Real quick.
No.
Oh, I'm wearing a hoodie. That's sure that may be a spoiler for you. I'm sorry.
Oh no,
I'll just show Aaron's face. There. You go.
Yeah.
All right,
what are you doing?
Hereth, yeah.
I'll do a speed run of my rankings real quick. Okay, so Boba Fett for the reason stated, Ahsoka stated for the reason stated, and then at number 4 I got Acolyte. I think it could potentially jump up to 3 depending on how quality season 2 is. Again, really interesting start. Again, for all the reasons we stated, Leslie did an amazing job of what she was given, but I still want a little bit more. See, at number 3 I got The Mandalorian. Like Nick said, very up and down. Season 1, some of the best Star Wars. Season 2, the cameo show. Season 3, probably my least favorite season of Star Wars. Then we go to number 2. We got Obi-Wan Kenobi. Again, I actually am with Luke on this. I'm an Obi-Wan defender. Jesus Christ.
W. Pharaoh, you're still on my
put, like,
shit
damage
list,
on
but
my
that is
forehead?
hilarious. You're still on my shit list.
No, you're more like Morbius right now.
Oh, maybe.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It's ranking time.
Yeah, it's ranking time. Anyway, number 2, Obi-Wan Kenobi for all the reasons I just said, and number 1, Andor.
All right.
Charlie, let me get your top 6.
My top 6. Okay.
Your top 6.
So we have salt, pepper, paprika.
Nice. I love it in my burger sauce.
Let's go.
Seasons, not seasonings. Okay.
Shows.
I'm gonna kill you.
Okay. Toes. Okay.
Kidding.
So my thumb,
YouTube,
my
not
index, my. Okay. So I'll go from bottom up. I'll go number 6 is Kenobi. Sorry, Luke. Not sorry. Number 5.
Luke, I got you. Don't worry.
I got you, Luke, too.
Okay, for those of you who know, Luke and I are like the Brackens and the Blackwoods with Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka, okay? Or no, Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan.
Dude.
Like, we literally will kill each other over this. So number 6...
But that's okay.
Okay, thanks, Luke. 6 is Kenobi. 5 is Ahsoka. 4 is Boba Fett. Because Boba Fett's just... Yeah, everyone knows. Boba Fett has a soft spot in my heart, despite what they did to him in the later half of the show. Episode 3, number 3, I have the Acolyte, because Acolyte really surprised me, as opposed to what everyone else in the community is saying. But I just loved how they're able to show how the Jedi lost their way. 2, I have Mando. I mean, season 3, meh. 2, solid. 1, amazing. And then 1, I have Andor, because Andor is...
Where does Ahsoka rank in this?
Ahsoka's 5.
Yeah, Ahsoka was right before Obi-Wan.
So you have Kenobi, Ahsoka, Boba Fett, Acolyte, Mando, and the number 1 is Andor. Because Andor, if we're talking about the shows as a whole, the one that would be most like critically acclaimed, it's probably Andor.
Yeah.
But
Lucas.
All right. Boba Fett last for all the reasons, not just because Char made Obi-Wan last in his rank. Mando.
Okay, do it. Actually rank it. Don't do it out of spite.
No. I literally think Mando. I literally think Boba Fett is. Boba Fett is my least favorite.
I'm saying this as a guy that has a Boba Fett cutout behind me.
I'm being serious. Boba Fett is my least favorite.
Would you like some candy? I got some. Want some candy?
No, I would like to get my rankings done so I can be done and go to bed.
Okay. I have a whole thesis we have to get through on my rankings before you.
Yes.
Anyway. Boba Fett, Mando, Ahsoka, Acolyte, Andor, Obi-Wan. Those are my rankings.
All right.
I don't need any explanation. Acolyte, I will say for the Acolyte, it ends up at number 3 because of the lore that we are establishing and the fact that we are getting new stories in a different time period that have nothing to do with the Chucklefuck Skywalkers.
That's totally fair. So, I might have the most controversial ranking. So sorry.
I'm here for it. I love you, Chase.
Natasha.
Rogue Squadron.
I'm ready to hear it.
Number 6 for me is Ahsoka.
Okay.
I liked Ahsoka a lot, and this is like, I'm not a Clone Wars person, so the Clone Wars stuff didn't really resonate with me. I am a Rebels person. The Rebel stuff really resonated with me. I agree. It's a tricky one because while I feel like Ahsoka wasn't the main character of her own show, I'm not sad about it because it was also Hera and Sabine that were a huge focus, and I'm like, if we're going to have someone be the focus, I'm glad it's them. live action Hera was amazing for me personally. She's one of my favorite characters. But Haley and I were talking about this today, is that while it's a good show and things did happen, it's just like a lot of the things that happened did kind of fall flat. It very much felt like, yep, these are the characters in Star Wars and they are doing things, and that was kind of it. So it's bottom of mine. Number 5, Mando. I think it's a good show. I think Din and Grogu are a great pair. I loved the adventure of the week in season 1, and I think they just started experimenting with season 2 and season 3, and I think those experiments got away from what made The Mandalorian so special when it came out. I liked season 3 a lot. I like season 2 a lot, but season 1, if it was just season 1 Mandalorian, that ranking would be a lot higher. But number 4, Book of Boba Fett. I love the Book of Boba Fett because I will die on this hill. It is, to this date, the most fun Star Wars show we have had yet. I can't remember who said it, but maybe multiple people have said it, is the Book of Boba Fett is someone with a really awesome camera playing with action figures.
Yes.
And it's the coolest. Boba Fett comes in on a Rancor. Yes, it's the most fun.
And there's a bunch of explosions going. Pow, 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 pow.
Like, I don't like space Vespas. I think they're cheesy. I'm not crazy about the Mando episodes. I like the Mando episodes. I think the Mandalorian episodes in Book of Boba Fett still feel like Book of Boba Fett. It's just he's the main focus. It is a more fun thing. I think seeing Luke doing the backflips with Grogu, like, that was great. But top 3.
Chase, before you continue, because of that ranking, not only do you get the Boba Fett candy, I'm going to give you a fucking Oscar. Here you go.
Oh, amazing.
You win.
I win. You can take this Boba Fett cut out of my house.
Here you go. Here you go.
Number 3 for me is The Acolyte. Because I think a lot of what we've already said is they took a lot of chances. It was very creative. What we've talked about over the past 2 hours. I just think that the things that held back the show were very much just behind the scenes stuff. It really wasn't the show that was bad. It was the behind the scenes stuff that really held it back. Number 2 is Kenobi. And I remember doing this ranking on a live, like during some of the earlier Acolyte discourse, and putting it lower. But the more I thought about it, no show has made me feel the way Kenobi made me feel.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that like most people were crying the whole time through Kenobi because of all of the stuff. And I know it's a singular moment of like a 6-episode show. Obi-Wan talking to Leia and telling her about Padme and Anakin is one of the greatest scenes I can think of in Star Wars. It's so emotional. It's so good. I think the fight scenes with Vader and Obi-Wan are great. I do like Reva. I like the Inquisitors. I loved, young Leia in that show. But overall, just like the emotions that show kind of evoked, I can't like discredit that. But the best Star Wars show, hands down, it will take a mountain to move it from number 1, is Andor. Andor is, being like an original trilogy fan, like through and through, Andor to me is the embodiment of Star Wars. I hate both of you. I love Andor. It tickles every bit of Star Wars that I love. It's such a small moment in Andor, but the shot of the TIE pilot running during the eye on the catwalk and then climbing the ladder down into the TIE fighter, while it's not important to the story, it's not important to Andor as a whole, like that to me was like, this is why it's my favorite show. Not because the show is obviously about TIE fighters, but it's like, this is art. And it's one of the few times, like I think since The Last Jedi, where I'm like, someone with a really good artistic vision was behind the camera. on this and was editing the show, and just the messaging of Andor. I was joking with someone that it was like Andor literally, not figuratively, literally hits you over the head with a brick in its messaging. And like, I love that show so much. I'm so excited for season 2. But I think that's a good place to wrap it up right before the 2.5 hour mark. We do get.
Do we get more money?
If we wait for another minute and 1 second, we do get a bonus from Disney.
Oh, nice!
Right. Candy.
But Luke, Charlie, and Hereth, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find. No, go ahead, Hereth.
No, I think you should go first again.
No, Hereth.
No. You already started. I can't open Pandora. Okay, close it.
Hereth, go, or I will absolutely end this stream right now. Go.
Okay. Damn, Luke, Mr. Powerhouse. You can find me at Hereth Productions on TikTok and Instagram when I'm not being censored by Luke. You can find me at Hereth Productions, or you can find me on this podcast when I'm not being censored by Luke. And now, Luke, I think you should go.
Wow, no. Char, where can the good people follow you on the social medias?
Well, good people, you can find me here. Good luck.
Luke, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me at Jedi Master Eggs and on all the other social medias at the Podwans. Sure, I might change it. I'm just too lazy to do it. Well, anyway.
I'll actually stay right. Hickory dickory dock,
Thank you, Luke. You can find me at Forward Into the Black on TikTok and Twitch. I won't be making Star Wars content. I am flying out at 2:30 in the morning to get to Omaha, Nebraska, where Luke is from, to ride across the beautiful state of Iowa on a bicycle.
Who hates Iowa? We hate Iowa.
It's a beautiful state. I'm going to be doing
Wait, Chase, are you going through
Natacia? That's where you can find him, so you can talk about his ranking of Ahsoka.
Chase.
I still love it.
Chase, are you by chance going through Chicago?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, he's only going from like.
I'm going.
Just wondering.
I'm going.
Maybe we can.
I'm going between going through the state, and then I'm flying back, and then riding from Seattle to Vancouver.
You can just like end it at O'Hare, and
It's not happening. Thanks everyone for watching. Natacia,
you can find me on TikTok, Twitter, and
thank you so much for being here yet again and dealing with our horrible shenanigans.
I love it.
Every time
10
you're
out
on,
of 10.
It is such a great perspective to have you on, and I can't thank you enough for being here.
Look at my Luke Skywalker van.
I swear.
Oh my God! Please kill me now.
Nick, thank you again for being a part of this. As the Acolyte has been coming out, being here every week with us, it means a lot. Having your knowledge on the High Republic every single week is great. I'm glad to have you back anytime you want to come on. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure. It really has been.
Amazing. All right, everyone. And one last thing, Hereth, save your game.
God damn.
Save your game.
Hereth got no game.
And also, we're going to be switching from Acolyte to House of the Dragon every week.
Yes, finally.
And from that point, we will be back to regular scheduled programming, releasing episodes every Thursday or Friday, whenever they get edited and come out. So, that's what we got going on. Light for life. We are all the Republic, and may the Force be with you always.
You're not soul.
Bye bye.
Save your game.